Silence and Solitude. The Practice of Khalwa, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to Sufi Essence with Hammad Syed. In a world saturated with noise, distraction, and constant connectivity, the practices of silence and solitude seem not only ancient, but almost radical. We're conditioned to equate stillness with inactivity and aloneness with loneliness. But for centuries, the Sufi masters have taught that silence and solitude are not merely the absence of sound and company. They are a profound spiritual technology for unlocking the deepest secrets of the heart. Today we embark on a doctoral-level exploration of the practice of Khalwa, the spiritual retreat that stands at the very heart of the Sufi path. We will delve into its theological foundations, its psychological purpose, and its ultimate goal: to move beyond the ceaseless chatter of the ego and the world, to find a profound and an enduring connection with Allah. This is a lecture on how to find your way back to your Creator, not by looking for Him in the noise, but by seeking Him in the stillness. Part 1. The Prophetic Precedent of Khalwa. To understand the spiritual significance of Khalwa, we must first turn to its most perfect and a profound example: the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Before he received the first revelation, he would retreat for days and weeks to the Cave of Hira on Jabal al-Nur, the mountain of light. This was not an accidental habit, it was a deliberate and a necessary spiritual preparation. In the absolute solitude of that cave, far from the clamor of Makkah, the Prophet, peace be upon him, was able to detach himself from the world and turn his entire being towards the divine. This prophetic Khalwa was a profound act of spiritual detox. It was a shedding of the noise, the desires, and the social conditioning of his time. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was not seeking to escape the world, to find the spiritual ground from which he could later engage with the world in a state of absolute clarity and divine purpose. The Cave of Hira was the sacred womb where his spiritual identity was born, and where his direct and an unmediated connection with Allah was established. This prophetic precedent establishes two key principles of Khalwa. First, solitude is a necessary precondition for receiving divine revelation and spiritual insights. The heart, the qalb, must be quieted before it can hear the whispers of the divine. Second, the purpose of solitude is not isolation, but preparation for a more meaningful engagement with humanity. The Prophet, peace be upon him, did not remain in the cave. He returned to the world to share the message he had received. His seclusion was a service, not a flight. It was an act of profound and a sacred necessity. Part 2. The Metaphysics of Silence, the Practice of Khalwa, is a spiritual science of both silence and solitude. The silence we speak of is not merely the absence of speech, but a profound and a conscious inner stillness. The Sufi masters taught that the world is in a constant state of noise, and that most of this noise is not external, but internal. It is the ceaseless chatter of the ego nafs, the constant stream of thoughts, anxieties, and desires that keeps us spiritually deaf. The metaphysical purpose of silence is to quiet this internal noise. The Sufi believes that just as the universe was created from a single word, the reality of Allah can be found in the sacred stillness that precedes and follows all words. In this stillness, the heart begins to listen to a different kind of sound, the spiritual sound of the universe's constant praise of its creator. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said Allah, the Exalted, said, "I am to my servant as he thinks of me. I am with him when he remembers me. If he remembers me in his heart, I remember him in my heart." This hadith reveals the profound nature of this inner silence. It is not an empty space, but a sacred sanctuary filled with the remembrance and the presence of Allah. Silence is also a powerful tool for self-confrontation. In the absence of external distractions, the seeker is forced to confront the true nature of their own mind, their own heart, and their own ego. In silence, the seeker comes face to face with their inner chaos, their hidden fears, and their unfulfilled desires. This confrontation is often difficult and painful, but it is the necessary first step towards purifying the heart and freeing the soul, ruh, from its temporal shackles. The silence of Khalwa is not a passive state. It is an active, profound, and a courageous spiritual work. Part 3. The Purpose of Solitude, the second component of Khalwa. is the physical and a spiritual act of separating oneself from creation in order to unite with the Creator. The purpose of solitude is not to reject humanity, but to gain a clearer perspective on it. When we are constantly surrounded by others, our spiritual state becomes highly susceptible to their influence. Our thoughts, our emotions, and our spiritual energy are constantly being shaped by external forces. Solitude provides a sanctuary for the spiritual self. It is a time for the seeker to take a sacred and an honest inventory of their own being. In solitude, the seeker is able to identify the subtle and the powerful ways in which their ego has taken control. It is in solitude that the seeker is able to distinguish between the divine whisper of the Ruh and the noisy clamor of the nafs. It is the crucible where the spiritual metal is forged and purified. The practice of Khalwa also serves to cultivate a profound and an unmediated relationship with Allah in our social lives. Our prayers and our remembrance often take place in a communal context. While this is profoundly beneficial, it can also lead to a reliance on external spiritual support. Khalwa forces the seeker to stand alone before their Creator, to build a relationship that is based solely on their own personal devotion. It is a journey of moving from a communal faith to a profoundly personal and an intimate one. It is a journey of discovering that the ultimate companion is Allah, and that in His presence one is never truly alone. Part 4. Khalwat, Dar Anjuman. Solitude in the crowd, the pinnacle of the practice of Khalwa, is not a physical retreat, but a permanent inner state. The Naqshbandi Sufi order, known for its emphasis on discipline and silent Dhikr remembrance, perfected this practice and named it Khalwat Dar Anjuman, solitude in the crowd. This is the ultimate goal of the spiritual retreat, to internalize the state of solitude so completely that one can be outwardly engaged with the world while remaining inwardly in a state of profound and an unwavering communion with Allah. The seeker who has achieved Khalwat Dar Anjuman is no longer dependent on a physical cave or a secluded room. Their heart, the qalb, has become a permanent sanctuary. Their inner world is a timeless waqt time, a sacred present moment that is untouched by the noise, the desires, and the distractions of the external world. They are able to work, to socialize, to lead, and to love, all while their heart remains firmly anchored in the remembrance of their Creator. This state is a powerful refutation of the idea that spirituality is an escape from the world. On the contrary, it is a way of being so rooted in the divine that one is able to engage with the world with a clarity, compassion, and an effectiveness that is simply not possible for the heedless. The seeker of Khalwat Dar Anjuman is not escaping the world. They are transforming it because their inner state is a constant source of divine light that is radiating outwards. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the most perfect living embodiment of this state. He was the most engaged with humanity, and yet his inner life was a private and an intimate journey with Allah alone. Part 5. The fruits of Khalwa. The practice of Khalwa yields profound spiritual fruits. The most significant of these is the attainment of spiritual insight, or basira. In the silence and solitude of retreat, the seeker's inner eye begins to open. They begin to see the subtle workings of the ego, the hidden meanings behind events, and the divine hand in all of creation. Their ilm knowledge is no longer an intellectual accumulation of facts, but a direct experiential realization of truth. Another fruit of Khalwa is the attainment of profound inner peace and tranquility, sakina. By detaching from the anxieties of the past and the fears of the future, the seeker learns to live in the eternal now of waqt time. Their heart becomes a sanctuary of peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. In a world of chaos and uncertainty, they carry with them the unshakable presence of Allah. Ultimately, the purpose of Khalwa is the cultivation of a deeper and a more intimate love for Allah, in the absence of all worldly companionship. The seeker discovers that their greatest and their most profound joy is found in the remembrance of their Creator. It is in this state of profound solitude that the heart is able to say with absolute certainty that it desires nothing and no one more than it desires Allah. The Prophet, peace be upon him, found in the Cave of Hira a solitude that led him to the greatest intimacy of all. This is the profound and the beautiful secret of Khalwa. May this reflection inspire us to seek moments of silence and solitude in our own lives. not as a means of escape, but as a sacred pathway to finding the profound and the beautiful presence of Allah that resides within us.